Welcome to another episode of Reseller Information Network. Today we are celebrating it's not really silver anniversary as far as years, but for us, 25 episodes in. We thank you guys so much for continuing to watch and hang out and for dropping questions and comments. We got a couple that I want to get to early on, and we'll touch base with some later on. First off, we got Lady Luck Junk dropping in. Thank y'all with a big heart. Lady Luck Junk, we big hearts you back. We appreciate you so much and all that you do. Mayberry Picker says, I appreciate y'all doing these episodes, helping new and older resellers. Would love to learn more about modern and vintage hats. Mayberry Picker, I do know, like from talking to production, I think we've got something in the works that'll be coming up very soon in the way of hats. So we'll get on that. Dave Osborne says, I've seen an uptick in international sales for sure. That's talking about last week. We were talking about the changeover from GSP to eBay International Shipping, and that I was saying that I definitely had seen an uptick in that as well. And David Osborne also said, I need to offload those Detroit Tigers gear quick in response to last week's episode about getting up your baseball stuff. And we'll jump back in later on and touch base on some of these questions because we actually have quite a few questions this week, which is a great thing. But in the meantime, we do want to introduce, as always, our panel. Man, we always appreciate these guys being here. Actually, today, right out of the gate, I'm wearing my official Cernoch Connection merch. And we got the man, the myth, the legend with us today. As always, Cernoch, what's going on? Muted.
Oh, buddy, I'm messing this up. Hey, we got a great guest today. I'm wearing a little Run the Jewels action. Saw them back when they played with Rage Against the Machine last year. So that's what I'm wearing today. Oh, and I got look, check this out. I got the Barcelona 92 vintage shirt today. If you know about 1992 Olympic basketball, that it holds some little significance. So, but I think we have a great guest today. Can't wait to ask him some questions and hear what he has to say. So we'll move it along.
As always, we got straight from I'm sure the center of attention at the Chantilly card show over the weekend. Guys, don't forget to check out Tim on Whatnot. Link will be down below. So check him out. He's selling cards on there all the time. But Tim, what's going on in your world, buddy?
Oh, well, I'm back from a weekend of picking sports cards. It's kind of crazy because, some people don't really think about buying sports cards, like picking like how we do like other things, like when I'm out picking glass or anything like that. But it's totally like that because you're literally like digging, trying to find the bargains, the stuff that falls through the cracks. So it was a long weekend, but super stoked, excited to be back. I am broke officially once again. But we're going to get to it. We're going to do some Whatnot sales. But I will tell you one thing that I am not broke in if it was real money. But unfortunately, it's not real money. And that is the 7-Eleven points. We did take a slow step this weekend towards our goal of 1 million 7-Eleven points. Most in part due to the fact that I was literally inside the same building for like 72 hours. So I didn't accumulate much, but we are currently sitting at 108,597 7-Eleven points. So we are moving forward towards that goal, and we want to thank everybody who has been entertained by this and keeps asking questions on Tuesday. You got to remember to turn in on Fridays when this comes out to get the official grand total of the 7-Eleven points. But yeah, super excited to have Kevin here. I've been fortunate enough to meet him in person. Great guy, tons of knowledge and experience, and this is going to be fun. So stay tuned for more fun stuff.
Oh, man. Leroy is in the building today, ladies and gentlemen. He's not on the run. He is in with us live, coming live from Leroy's shop. Leroy, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on, everybody? Guys, it's exciting again, number 25. Every week it keeps going up. I'm surprised it hasn't gone backwards, but that's okay. I appreciate all you guys asking questions during the Tuesday show. Today I was cleaning a little bit of tools, just trying to get some stuff taken care of. I've heard this gentleman's name more than once, quite a few times. Kevin, I've never got to meet him. Kevin, thank you for coming on the show today. Hopefully one day we get to meet in the future.
Hope so.
So for me, our guest today is Kevin Tennessee Picker. I actually was fortunate enough to meet him at Reseller Rally. In fact, he was the first person I met at Reseller Rally. I walked in and I recognized him from videos from John and those guys. But I walked in and we actually spent some time together and talked and actually went and ate dinner with the other Kevin, like the other picker Kevin.
Kevin number 2.
Yeah. So I guess that would be a discussion, like who was on eBay first, Commonwealth or Tennessee picker. So that would be an interesting little analogy of how long ago, if you guys could trace back the steps. But we are fortunate and pleased to have Kevin with us today, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to picking for sure. Kevin, just a brief introduction.
Yeah, well, my name's Kevin. I've been reselling. Well, I was reselling before I knew it was called reselling. I've been doing it since I was probably 10 years old. And then reselling online for about 26 years. I had my first sale on eBay in 1990, either the end of 96 or the first of 97. And have been picking ever since. And, it's, I think it's one of the funnest professions. I've been doing it. I've done it part-time. I've done it full-time. And I love everything about it. So.
There you go. We're going to dive a little bit more into Kevin's journey and also get some tips from him and helping out you guys as beginner resellers and experienced as well. One of the things that I've noticed right out of the gate from everybody on this panel, Kevin included, because we were talking a little bit before the show, is guys, if you think you know it all, you're sadly mistaken. I'll just tell you, you may think you know it all, but there is just too much out there, too many categories, too many nuances within those categories to know everything about everything. So I always say learners are earners, and man, I want to keep learning. So we're going to jump right into the 101. And Kevin, we're going to put you on the spot today about what is a 101 that you would give out to the guys that are maybe just starting or beginner resellers, and just give them a tip that you've got.
Well, my biggest mistake when I started was shipping and calculated shipping. I would recommend that no matter what you do, use calculated shipping, weigh your item, and know that with not just weigh your item, but weigh your item with what you're going to pack it in, because you will underestimate it and you will lose money. That was the biggest, that was the biggest loss of money when I first started out. I was always underestimating the shipping, and you never get the dimensions, the calculation of the dimensions correct, and so that'll cost you a lot of money. And then I would say also that at first, whatever profit you make, reinvest. You will, the bigger the bankroll, the better you're going to be at picking. All of this right here came from me reinvesting from $100. And probably I got serious again in 2016, and I just started reinvesting that money. The first month I made $5,000 or $6,000. Just rolled it back into, and this has just kept rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. So that's my 2 biggest pieces of advice for someone who's getting started.
You guys got any thoughts about those 2 things? I would say 100% the reinvesting thing is, especially like when you're doing this by yourself and you're a small business, it's super important. And, obviously, if you're full time, like most of us are, you still got to pay your bills too. So to be able to have that line where you can pay your bills and have money to reinvest is super important. So you have to have that balance. So I think like the biggest thing to kind of like piggyback off of that is to make sure that you're buying with that in mind. You know, because if you're buying, you know, spending $400 on something to make $500, it's not really going to help you in the terms of being able to have enough profit to reinvest and, you know, pay your bills. So I think that, you know, the best thing to go along with that is to make sure that you're buying with that sort of information in mind. And I think that'll be super helpful.
Yeah, I also think with like the shipping part too, that's really important as well, because I know a lot of people don't sell on eBay just because of the shipping. They're so intimidated with the shipping that they have. I talk to people all the time that they have awesome items that they could sell on eBay, but they refuse because they don't know all the aspects to shipping, and it really intimidates them. So I think that's really important. Like, you just got to like sit down and go, okay, like Kevin said, you know, make sure, you know, you're weighing your items. And I think we talked about that in like an episode. If I'm telling everyone to start out, calculated shipping is the way to go for someone new, because you don't know all those, you know, like when you have skin in the game and you know, you've done it a whole bunch of times, you know where things are going to lie. You know, if you're selling hats, I know most of my hats are going to be 8 to 10 ounces. So, you know what to put in there. But yeah, someone new, you know, you know, I think of, you know, new resellers as almost like garage sale resellers, where it's like, all right, I'm gonna go to a garage sale, I'm gonna pick up a golf club, and I'm gonna pick up a clock, and I'm gonna pick up a you know, some dishes, and I'm gonna pick up you know, so they're picking up just different things that are all gonna weigh, measure out differently. So yeah, if you're trying to do flat rate with any of that stuff, you're going to get screwed up really quickly. And I even do that now. And if I have boots that are oversized or something, it's going calculated. Trust me, it's going calculated. They're going to pay for it, you know? So yeah, very important.
Leroy, you got something to add?
Yeah, for me, a couple of things, guys. Please, I see this all the time, and I want to strangle people. Kevin, sorry, sometimes I get violent as Kevin sometimes. I want to strangle people when I see people, when you're new and you're following somebody that they go and they put the item is $11 and it's worth 65, but then they put the shipping for $55 and it's only a $6 ship. Like, don't do that. Please don't do that. Please, it gets me upset. I was gonna behave, Kevin. I'm sorry, but I was gonna behave, but I don't like when people do that. I see that a lot, where they'll so underprice the product on the top end and then add it on to the shipping. Don't do that. I don't think that's a good idea. If that's what your business model is, then bless you. But for me, no. The other thing I have to say is what I personally do when it comes to reinvesting is I started off with $500. A couple of years ago, I was doing something different. Started off with $500, and I would go and I'd go to a big auction, I'd spend that 500. Every week, I go in and I take 10% of what I make, and it goes to pay that $500 back. Once I get that $500, I can go to another big auction, and it's usually about 6 weeks. I'll get up to that $500, and then I can go to another big auction and buy again. So I started off with the five. Every week I take 10 or 15%, and I put it into that account to replenish that five. Once it gets back up to the five, I do it all over again. And I also every week I give myself $100 allowance to go to the flea market.
You know, like Leroy does bring up an interesting point. Like when I first started, I did have a every week budget that I knew, and honestly, man, when I first started out, that was $200. Like that was it. Like that's where I was at. I was like 200 for the week. I don't care how good it stuff is. Like I just can't. I can't go in the hole because, you know, it's interesting because. Kevin has approached this and has been both full time and part time, and kind of went back and forth. I know because we've talked about it, but it also reminds you that like if you need to do this like to pay your bills, then you still like you could buy a bunch of stuff and then wait for it to sell and then buy again. But if you're needing a consistent income, then you are going to have to invest. Like you are going to have to reinvest in your business. So when you look at items, like I know for us, we're cheap. I'll just be honest, like we are cheap. Like if we go to garage, it's probably a good thing that we don't make consistent yard sale videos as far as us on the panel outside of Kevin, because I know as brutalized as some other people that I watch, they get talked about that you're ripping people off. Like they don't even want to hear our negotiation because it's some of that stuff that you're like, whoa, you guys are. But when you're buying cheap, the other thing you have to think about as far as gross versus net. So, like, I mean, you may have sold something for $100. Well, after you pay your fees and all the stuff you paid, your cost of goods, but then also your percentage of reinvestment. Like Leroy was saying, he has it set up to where I know if I put this much back in, like Kevin said, when you first start, like if you don't need the income or if you're thinking about becoming full time down the road, I will tell you, some people make more part-time than they would full-time. Let me just give you that caveat. And the reason being is because honestly, when you don't have to, the pressure of I've got to get this done right now, some people take a step back, right? Like they may get a little lazier when it comes to being full-time, like, hey, I don't got no boss. I can work when I want. And then your sales will suffer as a result of it. But before you ever even think about being full-time, like think about how I can pay my bills with this income and still be able to keep it churning. Because the one thing about reselling, you got to continually put more in to get more out. Like this is how it works. So, all right, we'll jump into the next topic, which is trending. All right, I know we all have different messages when it comes to this about what's selling for you. Kevin, we'll go twofold with you. Like, what's selling for you, and what do you like to sell?
Well, if I had my choice of what to sell, it would be all toys from the '80s. That's my expertise because I grew up. Transformers, GI Joe, Mask, Silverhawks, Thundercats. You name it, I loved it.
That's my jam right there. Thundercats was my jam. I had the Thundercats bed sheets and everything. Yep. Thundercats was my jam.
Thundercats, He-Man. Gosh, there's so many. But like, I never got to buy all those toys when I was a kid. So really, when I started yard selling, it wasn't necessarily to resell. It was to pick my childhood. I was looking for the stuff that I love. But and I will say I do have a ton of that stuff. I just bought probably a $6,500 GI Joe collection. I want to keep some of it, and then I'm going to resell some of it. A lot of carded Joes on this one, but now that that stuff holds its value pretty good. Most of the '80s stuff holds its value pretty good. Especially if it's still carded or in the box or anything, or has the original paperwork and the box and stuff. But here, trending for me lately is something that has been down, or twofold. So Polaroid cameras, number one, they were good, they were bad, and now they're on their way back up again for whatever reason. I don't know if it's a particular model number or what, but I have been selling Polaroids over $35, $40, and $50 here recently.
Wow.
So they're on the rise again, and it's not retrospectives buying them. It's just casual. From what I can ascertain, it's just normal collectors or whatever. And then the point and shoot 35 millimeter cameras. Now I might be late to this trend, but like an Infinity Stylus 35 millimeter that's just a point and shoot, it's like $150 now. And so like the old Canons that just take one little roll of film, all that's on the rise right now for whatever reason. I don't know why. About a year ago, they weren't, and they are now. So
I've heard a lot of people saying because it's their photography classes. A lot of these photography classes in college, like high school and college, are now having them get those cameras just to kind of learn the process of film and photography.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's funny you said that about Polaroid too, because I did a house clean out, and one of the things I found in there was a Polaroid camera. And typically I don't mess with that sort of stuff just because like the testing of it, and like I don't necessarily know what's working and what's not, and it can be a hassle sometimes. But I got it in the house clean out, so it was free. So I was like, let me just comp it, and it was the Polaroid SX70 land camera.
Oh,
And I sold it, for parts not working, and it sold for $75.
yeah. I have one right now.
Yeah, so that was like
can't.
in one day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's a crazy thing that you brought up. I have a question though about the GI Joes, and I know Cernoch and is super knowledgeable in this stuff too. How much of condition, if so, say it does have the card with it, how much of the condition of the card itself and the adhesiveness of the plastic to the card plays a factor when you're like pricing, whether selling or buying something like that?
100%. But I will tell you that GI Joe collectors are probably the most finicky when it comes to how the condition is for the item. They have a whole Facebook page called GI Joe, A Real American Hero, 1982 to 94, or something like that. They're very specific, and like you have to mention if it's loose, how tight the elbow is. You need to make sure there's no cracks in the knees and the elbows. You have to make sure the crotch isn't broken. You have to make sure that the O-ring isn't loose. They're probably the pickiest toy collector that I've sold to. And so when it comes to the carded ones, there's a couple that I'm probably not going to sell just because the O-ring deteriorated and the legs came loose. So just for them thinking that it could be resealed, I'm not going to try to sell it and fight that battle. It's just not worth the hassle.
Yeah.
But condition is everything as far as the GI Joes go. They're probably the most, as far as condition, that you have to focus on in the most out of the 80s toys that I sell anyway.
Leroy.
And you can get those graded, right? They put them in special containers, like sort of almost like a box, a clear box.
You gotta see something.
He's got you. Show and tell. Show and tell.
Wait, was this a premeditated question?
You know what's bad for me? When I first started selling on eBay and I saw Ra in the title of GI Joe's, I was like, "Who's Ra? I've never heard of him."
Wow, that is awesome.
That's what they look like.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. So
now, did you send that out to get graded, or did you purchase that yourself?
No, this was part of the collection that I just purchased.
Wow.
And this isn't 80s. This is the 25th anniversary. So these have just now started appearing on eBay as being graded. So I'm going to hold on to this one for a while because since it's a 9, the 25th
What's the
anniversary
company?
This is toygrader.com.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it right there.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Oh, that's crazy.
But
what's the approximate value of something like that right now?
Well, this one, since if it was I would say I could sell it at this grade for about 150 to 200.
Shoot.
Is what I would ask. I don't know if I would get it just like because not many people have graded the 25th anniversary stuff just yet. So there's only a few sales and then there's not many characters that have sold. But once they start,
yeah,
that one will probably be a pretty good one.
Nice. What do they run as far as have you checked into grading any of the stuff that you have other than that? That was already pre-graded.
Well, I have graded your graded toys, especially in their original packaging. It's not like graded cards where that's, if you want a high quality card and you're a major collector, you can go in there and get yours for a couple $100, Gem Mint 10 or whatever. Well, that's not necessarily the case with toys, because some of the higher end stuff, there's no precedent set for a Gem Mint 10 or whatever the equivalent of it is. So you have to find the right person to come along and buy it. So they're long tail right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you have something that's super rare and that has been graded, you can probably sell it for a lot. But I'm not going to get any of mine graded, because it's not as easy as getting cards graded.
Right.
Cards graded, you can set up an assembly line. You can look at your corners, your centering. There's only a few things you have to look at. But when it comes to toys, you're going to have to look at make sure there's no dents or creases in the box, and make sure that, the figure has all the right pieces and the plastic is over the right parts. It's a little bit harder to get graded, and it's a little bit more expensive to get graded. So I haven't started doing that just yet. But the value for carded figures, especially for Joe's, are so high that it's right now, to me, it's not worth getting all of them graded.
There you go.
If that was a long way to answer your question.
No, that's good. Cernoch, you got anything to...
He was talking about toys from the 80s. All right, I'm gonna. This was not a popular toy, but I had them and I loved them. And I always like to, like, toy collectors. I always like to say this to see if they know about it. Not to like a gotcha, but like there was a small little offshoot of, like, action figures called Supernaturals. They had a hologram.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a hologram, and they had like chess pieces, and you would break off the chess pieces, and you could have the hologram, and they would change from the guy to like a monster or a lion or something like that.
Yep.
I love those. I still have like 2, and like I went on a deep dive. I'm like looking at them. I'm like, oh, Chris, you cannot buy toys right now just to go, oh, I wanted that whole collection, so I'm gonna buy the whole collection. So it's
they were similar to the Visionaries, right?
Yes, they competed with each other. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah. I remember all those.
that was
Really cool.
It's funny you said that about point and shoot. I actually sold one of the point and shoot Olympus single film roll.
Yep.
It looks like a cheap camera, but it's like
Right.
that power zoom. That one sold for $50 over the weekend. I was like, garage sale $1, kind of thing.
right?
Like, okay, we'll do that.
Here's a bolo for you guys. Let me see if I can pull it up here. So I'd never heard of this one, and this one didn't even work. It was a Yashica T4. I don't know if. Let me see. I sold it for $300, not working. If it is working, it's $700.
Whoa!
So, and as you can see, it just looks like a little black point and shoot camera, but it slides, the front slides back or whatever, and so that's what I'm talking about. And they seem to all be going up. And the other one is the let's see here.
So was that one that you knew, or is it one that you just picked up and was like, let me just look this up really fast before I grab it, or did you just grab it because it was like $1 sort of situation?
Actually, that one was in a bulk buy from another reseller, and he just happened to mention, he's like, hey, there's a bunch of cameras in there, and one of them's worth a lot of money. I was like, okay, I'll look them up whenever I get home. And so a lot of people will say that, be like, hey, there's stuff in there that's worth a lot of money, and they've just seen listed, they haven't seen sold. And
Jeez, man.
so I got home and I started looking through it, and then I picked that one up and I looked it up, and I was like, that's not right. I thought I thought I found the Beanie Baby price, the $10,000 Beanie Babies or whatever. And so I started scrolling through there, and I was like, holy crap. So went through the solds, and I even went back to like Terror Peak and Worth Point. This one has always been higher than all the other ones, even when they were just $20 a piece. This one was like 50. So, and the other one is the Olympus stylus. Let's see if I can. That one, if you can. Wow. The Infinity stylus. It has the like figure 8 turned on its side. That's the Infinity. So if you see the Infinity symbol on an Olympus, that's a really good one.
All right, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I knew those Olympus ones were decent. And that's why, like, when I look at them, I was like, man, I make sure they ain't a cheap, but like it is. Yeah. There is some of those that look like that are pretty good. It's definitely a great.
Well, even the cheap ones now are like $25, $30. So if you can. If you find them for $1, $2, I would get them. They're probably going to be worth something.
So, guys, if you're on the estate sale hunt, that's where I tend to see that kind of stuff for sure. But I know it's out there too, yard sales. So we'll be chasing each other down next time we're together and see if we can.
I can already see it now. The race for the point shoot in about 2 months from now.
There you go. Hey, we're gonna go ahead and jump in this deep dive. So our deep dive today is not about one particular item or product. It's actually about the Tennessee Picker. We're going to be deep diving into what some experiential things. I know that he has a ton of experience. I've actually heard Kevin referred to as the best picker in the business, like that they actually pick with. From pretty high accolades. Cincinnati Picker, Shed Flips. I know these guys have both said that he was the guy that they pick with that is probably the best picker. I know from what I understand that he could pick in front of you or pick behind you. He's still going to outpick you. But that's one of the things that we always enjoy finding. So, Kevin, just, I know you shared your little background about how long you've been selling on eBay, but how was it like for you when you started picking and just figuring out like, hey, how do I go about this thing? Like, what does that look like for you as far as did you like just start looking up everything? Or are you just going with with Tim's method of pulling all the 5 senses in and tasting and touching and looking and this kind of things? There's combination thereof.
Well, first of all, let me just say there's a difference between being good and being lucky. I'm the latter. I'm not that good. So I guess it depends on which era you're talking about, because like back. So let me give you a little preview of my adult life here. Well, my whole life, and you'll see kind of where some of this came from. So I grew up in a little place here in Tennessee that's called Wares Valley. If you've ever heard of Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg, it's in between those right there, up in the mountains. My dad had a country store, and our house was built onto the side of it. So it was a country store with a short order grill and gas pumps out front. Well, from the time I was 5, I was helping him run the store. So this means I was counting an inventory from vendors that was bringing in the Pepsi guy, the Coke guy, the milk guy, the cookie guy, the bread guy. I was doing that from a very young age. And so I knew my dad was an entrepreneur. So I knew from that point on, I wanted to do something like that. That's what I wanted to do. So reselling actually started with me wanting some baseball cards. Back then you couldn't get baseball cards at there were a few hobby shops, but not many, not any close to me anyway. So the guy that brought the candy was actually the middleman for baseball cards. And my dad was like, okay, if you want to buy your own box, you can buy a box to sell and then buy a box to keep and use your allowance to do that. And so he allowed me to. My first box of cards, or two boxes of cards, were 1987 tops, which there's probably still 100 million of those still around. It's the most mass produced set of cards that they've ever made. And out of that, it just started. I started buying cards. I started buying little candies that were my own that I would sit on the counter and sell them myself to buy more, whatever it was I was wanting to get. So at a very early age, I learned to be an entrepreneur. Well, where I'm from is a tourist town. So there were a lot of, back then, they were called antique barns, where these barns were set up. And it's basically just people like us who had got a bunch of junk and was selling it just in a barn. But it was antiques and stuff. So every day, in the summer times, I would spend my days at those antique barns just going through there and looking at all that stuff. I didn't know why I was intrigued by it, but I was intrigued by everything that they had in those antique barns. And so I saw glassware, I saw old, everything that you think, like old furniture, like wash bins, just anything that you could think of was in these antique barns. Well, when I got old enough to drive, I started going to yard sales and immediately started recognizing things that I knew from when I was a child. I was like, oh, that's 50 cents. They were selling that for $10 at the barn. I'm going to buy that. And I would take it back to the lady that owned the antique barn and sell it to her for $5. And so I was already making money before the internet. This was in the 80s, by the way. This was before the internet was even around. So when I first started, when my buddy and I, he had told me about this site called eBay. This was either 96 or 97. He's like, they auction stuff off on there, and you get paid and you mail it out, and you don't have to set up, because we were sitting up at flea markets, we were sitting up at baseball card shows, we were setting up at NASCAR shows, and that's a lot of work. I mean, you got to be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You got to be there for 10, 12, and 8 hours each day. And sometimes you might make enough to make the booth rent, and that's it. You don't make anything else. So when we found out about this website, I was like, well, how do you get the pictures on there? So we had to take Polaroid pictures and scan those Polaroid pictures in. I don't know if you guys remember having to do that or not. But digital cameras weren't a thing yet. So we would, that's the only way we knew how to do it. So we would actually, if we didn't have a Polaroid, we'd take a picture, go get it photographed, go get it developed, bring it back, put it on the flatbed scanner, scan in the image, and then upload those images. And back then was dial up. So to upload your images, if you had 3, it took 45 minutes.
Oh, man.
But anyway, our first sale was a Richard Petty statue. He worked at a local gas station and knew these vendors that came in that sold NASCAR diecast and had this Richard Petty statue. And we got it at wholesale for $21, and it sold at auction on eBay for like $79. And I was hooked from that point on. So over the years, things have morphed, like what I look for at yard sales and thrift stores and stuff, because of my interests and what I personally knew. I used to only sell what I knew, and that was it. And then in 2005, 2004, I don't know if you guys remember these or not, but they had eBay drop-off stores called, I sold it on eBay, and the one I worked at was a direct competitor of that called New Markets, NU Markets. And so I learned, there is where I picked up a huge base of knowledge. So basically the store I was the general manager of, but we relied on everyone bringing their stuff in to sell, and it was all auctions. Well, we were a small in a small town, and we weren't getting that much stuff. So I decided to start teaching a class of how to yard sell. So I like people physically come in. We would go over stuff, and then that weekend I'd hand out assignments to people to what they wanted to pick up at yard sales. They'd all bring it in, and we'd sell it for them through this auction house. Well, that's when I started learning about glassware, like milk glass. Back then it was great. Milk glass, Fire King, I forget, McCoy, Hull Pottery. What was it? Not Precious More.
Fiesta
Yeah.
Ware was big back then.
Fiesta, yes. Like it was just glassware, china. Harley Davidson. I learned about Harley Davidson a long time ago. That was one of her, not necessarily their apparel, but their collectibles and stuff. Back then was huge, just as big. Lego has actually, lasted, has been just as valuable, but that, in that era, that's what I was looking for. No clothing for sure, no shoes. It was glassware, it was hard goods, it was toys still, and just whatever was selling at that time. So after that, I went back to work. So my training is actual designing and drafting. I'm an architectural draftsman. So I went back to work and just started selling part-time from like 2007 up until 2019. But around 2016, I was selling on the side, and I was always taking stuff to the post office. And by that time, Nerf guns had got popular. It was a big bag of. I was selling cards. I've never stopped selling cards on there. That's one of the things that's always been constant. But I got so tired of people asking me, "Well, you really can't make a living doing that, though. Is that why you do it part time?" And I was like, "You know what? I think I'm going to try to see if I can do it full time." And so in 2016, I started watching everybody on YouTube, and there wasn't many, and a lot of them were clothing sellers. Like a lot of them were selling suit jackets and all the brand names of suit jackets and all that stuff. And I actually wrote all that stuff down, and at one time I had a storage unit full of like clothing and suit jackets, and I was never going to list them. But
Ronnie Hart.
Yeah. Well, I told Ronnie at the reseller rally, I was like, dude, I can't see. I could not do what you do. I cannot sell suit jackets. I don't want to measure them. I don't want to pose them. I don't want to do anything. It's not fun for me. But anyway, and also in 2016, my knowledge of glassware was worthless because none of that stuff was worth really picking up anymore. Everything that used to be worth $40 and $50, like the Fire King restaurant cups, back in the day were $100. In 2016, they were 10. So I switched gears and started watching what sold videos from the few guys who were doing it. And then when I got out there, I just started anything that looked quality. I found out that I have an ability to see something that might be valuable, and if it's cheap enough, I just buy it. So I am one of those people who just buy it if it's cheap enough. I don't look it up. And I will say the percentage I think is it's more than half that I've picked up winners than losers, I would say. But that's and well, to be honest with you, back in the middle 2000s, your phone, you had to log in to eBay, and then you had to go to advanced search just to look up solds. It wasn't until the mid to late 2000s that they allowed you to view the solds. Now we have this pocket computer, and it should be unlimited to resellers now because we can look up anything.
Yep.
Unless it's not been sold before or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not been sold before, you probably got something good. So that's kind of a deep dive on me. And I've just been honing my picking ability from that point on. I have a good ability to retain an item that I've seen before or sold before, and if it's similar to that, you know, I know to grab it, and I know what I should probably pay for it. So,
Tim, I already know. Tim, go ahead.
No. I mean, I was actually not going to ask an immediate question. I was going to say it's a pretty, you know, fascinating story, and I mean, like, I don't know. There's a lot of similarities, obviously, between, you know, your journey and mine, because, you know, like when I started out, my parents were actually collectors slash dealers. You know, so like when I was growing up, I knew about certain stuff because they would take me to the yard sales, they would take me to the auction houses, you know, so like that's how it was kind of like in my blood. And like I started out in the 90s, you know, as probably like 8, 9 years old, flipping cards at the flea market. And eventually my parents were like, you're making more money selling these cards than we are selling the antiques, you know? And so like I it was always in my blood, and I had never envisioned myself doing it. And then kind of like, you know, I started helping my mom when she got fibromyalgia and she couldn't move around as much. And so like I started, like, she was like, I need to get rid of all this crap in the basement. I'm like, all right. So I started looking into it, and then I had no idea it was a reseller. I used to go around in a truck and get things for free on Craigslist, and then sell it, like fix it up and then sell it on Craigslist. And so like we called it the Craigslist hustle, but apparently, you know, we were basically flippers. We were reselling. And so like, you know, like, and then the glass thing is kind of crazy because at that time in 2016, when I first got into reselling, like probably like, you know, 2018, I guess, and I was trying to find the stuff that was selling, it was kind of difficult. But like now the boom of glass again is kind of crazy. But like all the things I remember from a kid, like Wedgwood and Fenton and stuff like that, I remember it because it was in my house. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't know, I just thought it was a really fascinating story. And obviously, like, to think about where we are now as far as like eBay and all the million platforms and whatnot, to photo to taking Polaroids and scanning them and uploading them on dial-up. I mean, just the amount of time, like my head is gonna explode right now. Because I remember my mom telling me about when she was selling on eBay. So it's like I took over her account when I went into eBay full time, because I started on Etsy. So I took over her account. So every time I call up and they're like, oh, you've been with us for, you know, 30 years or whatever it is. Every time I call, I'm like, yes. But like, I remember my mom telling me stories about selling like Fiesta ware and like Holt Howard Pixie ware, which are like these little like mayonnaise jars and things. They're kind of like funky, like onion heads and stuff. And like stuff like that still holds value, obviously. But it's kind of interesting to see probably all the peaks and valleys of the reselling. Like what was once hot is definitely not hot anymore, but sometimes comes back and becomes a craze again. So I mean, like it's kind of interesting to think about. Probably you see some things you probably wouldn't have picked up 10 years ago, but today you'll probably pick them up.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
Well, you know, I don't pick up Nerf guns now.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But in 2016, the sniper rifle I could sell for $125 all day.
Easy.
You can't do that now.
Yeah.
I sold one. I don't know exactly what Nerf gun it was, but I actually picked it up with Shad Juice on the 127 last year, and it sold for over 100. It was one particular Nerf gun. I think it shoots balls though, like not the. Yeah. But like those things, you never know. It's weird. Like every category has some kind of little grail intermingled in there. Like you were talking about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
About that camera. But yeah, like just to pick up a standard whatever. And I think that's one of the things that oftentimes you do see mistakes, because when you hear the word like when Tim says a certain glass company, you know, like, and then so like as a beginner reseller, you're like, well, I heard Linux is good, and I go out and I pick up Linux. It's like, wait, it's only $5. Like what? Like, yeah, it's a particular kind. Like, even amongst like things that you pick up, I know like toys, there's some GI Joes that are going to be worth 100 times more than like a certain GI Joe. So that's something for me that's very interesting to see when you look at the whole scope of years. Like
Oh
okay,
yeah.
so that's like constantly moving. It's one of the things like we talked about early on is I think that's why we have to continue to re-educate ourselves and like try to keep up with what's going on, or even better, stay ahead of what's going on. Because
Yeah.
and that's honestly one of the things, the tributes
That's hard
that
to do.
people, yeah, like we fortunately have Tim and Cernoch who are usually right there at the edge. Like Tim actually he has a crystal ball in his drawer behind him that he pulls out, because he's the first guy that ever told us about whatnot. That's for sure. But you guys got any questions for Kevin?
No, I love hearing like the old way. Sometimes the old ways where it's like it just makes you more appreciative of what we have. Like kind of like we're able to do this without all kind of like the hardships how it used to be, where it's like thinking about going full time is maybe a little bit easier now because you're it's all right here. All you have to do is pick up your phone and be like, all right, let me look this up, or let me just sit here in my car and list 5 items. So it's just like,
Right.
So it just kind of gives you kind of like a, all the complaining about servers and glitches and all this BS. It's just like, hey, look how far we made it. Look how far we made it.
Give me wait dial up.
I used to have to go to the library to upload my. I didn't even have a home computer. I had to go to the library and take my external hard drive that at that time only held 100 megabytes, not gigabytes, megabytes. And it was a hard drive that had to be plugged in. It didn't automatically work when you plugged the USB in. As a matter of fact, it was a serial port. It wasn't even a USB. And sit at the library for 4 hours while I uploaded the pictures to the computer and then log into my eBay account to list them. Yeah, those are the days.
Rapid fire. Okay.
Leroy,
you have a question?
Yeah.
I forgot my question was.
I do this to you all the time. I apologize. I'm gonna read rapid fire. Maybe you'll think of it. Okay. So, are you a one-man band?
Me?
Yes, you.
Yeah, I am now. I did have a photographer, and I would say that was the most help that I could do, because I have, as you can see, you don't even see the big pile of stuff that's right behind me. But if I had a photographer, I could knock out 120 listings a day. As it is right now, since I'm doing the photographing, I can only do probably 40 to 45 is the most that I can get.
Do you list every day?
Yeah.
And okay, so how many listings do you have approximately on your eBay right now?
Well, I just now started ramping it back up. I have been on a contract job designing for a nuclear facility in Oak Ridge. So I've just now started. I was down to about like 12 items. I'm back up to 170, and that's just starting like last Thursday.
And what about YouTube? How'd you get into doing YouTube?
Well, to be honest with you, I used YouTube just to bring my knowledge up to the present, and then that's when I started watching YouTube. Is the only 3 that I watched back in the day at first was Pete, Ronnie, and Chad. I forget the Golden Finger Picker.
Yeah.
And they had a show, and then they had John, the Cincinnati Picker, on. And then when him and Lonnie started doing a show, I'm kind of a prankster, so anytime there were shows, I just like to make people laugh. That's just what I do. So I always tried to just type in comments that would just make them bust out laughing, and so that kind of was the thing. They would wait to see what I would type, and then so they just happened to mention that they were going to the Highway 70 sale one year, and I was like, you know what, I might go out through there and check it out. Well, just so happens we ended up at the same yard sale, and I was looking, because when I'm in the zone, I'm scanning, I'm looking, I'm getting prices, and someone's like, Kevin, and I turned around and it was John. I was like, hey man, and I met them there, and they were like, why don't you come picking with us? So I was like, okay, and so I ended up picking with them that whole trip, and John was the one. They were both like, why don't you have a YouTube channel? I was like, well, why would I have a YouTube channel? I was like, well, you might as well film. You're doing it anyway, and just put it out there. Because never in a million years would I have thought that anyone would watch me, like pick stuff from yard sales. I mean, that's just was out of my mind. I would never have thought that. And John was like, just throw it out there, just do it. So my very first video was a haul video, and I was scared to death. And you know how hard it is to make yourself talk to a camera. I mean, you guys know now, but like, I was sitting in my dining room with this stuff, and I had the camera on, and I would sit there and I'd go, I can't do this. And I made my wife go to the bedroom. I was like, you can't listen to this. You have to go in there. And so I finally, it's the work, like my first, it's still up. You can go watch it. It's horrible. But after I filmed it and went in there and was starting to get in bed, my wife was like, are you done talking to yourself? I was like, shut up. So, but that's, it was the encouragement from those guys. I mean, I would have never started it on my own. And to be honest with you, I tried to film my first video like 40 times. I was never comfortable with seeing myself on a video. I just couldn't handle it. I was like, ugh. I wasn't comfortable at all. And I'm still really not comfortable. You don't see me much in my videos, and that's because I don't like to see myself. But
Right.
I love to look at myself and hear myself talk.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
5
Leroy,
years
do you
ago.
remember your question, Leroy?
Yeah, I forgot it and remembered it again after I lost internet twice.
All right, let's go.
No, Kevin, when you were saying like being in eBay way back, like I remember I used to watch videos and I liked watching people because it was like, oh wow, I'm not the only one that does this. Like I had a couple of people at my local flea market that got me into it, but I had to learn everything myself. There was no tech support. There was no how to Frankenbox, like they call it. I was like, oh, okay, so that's what they call that. I've been doing all this time, or that's what I didn't know. Like I had to learn stuff myself, and like through being a laborer as well, I would see certain things in the industry, like how they would ship a certain thing. I'm like, ooh, I can do that in my eBay, or ooh, I can use that for shipping supplies. So I had to learn. Like these guys now, like you new resellers, you guys are so lucky because back in the day, there was nobody teaching me nothing. I had to teach myself. Like there was no video on how. I just had somebody help me set up my account on eBay, and that was it. There was no tutorials, no nothing.
Leroy, if you had known, you could have took Kevin's course. You could have come and signed up for Kevin's course back in Tennessee today. You'd have been straight. See, you were just ahead of your time, man. Because now, like, you see a lot of people that have courses of how to sell on different platforms.
Well, so, I was only teaching them how to pick, so they would bring us stuff to sell.
I caught that nice and quick. I was like, I see what he did here. It's a little bit of slow business, so let me just push these people in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and back in the day, people didn't want to. They wanted to sell stuff, but they didn't want to do any of the other stuff. They didn't want to take pictures.
That's still like that right now.
Yeah, well, that's true. But so when I would teach them, so that place real, because we had full-time photographer, we had full-time listers, and then we had a full-time shipper. The guy in our shipping department was he was a master shipper. That guy taught me so much stuff. Like we would sell, probably we would have 60 to 80 items going out a day. He'd come in at 8, he'd be done by like 10:30. I was like, holy crap. And he's like, so I started, since I was the general manager, I was like, I'm going to come help you, and you're going to show me how you do all this stuff. Because we sold like the big meat cutters. Like, I mean, we were selling big stuff. Like some of the stuff we had to put on a large truck with a forklift and stuff. We sold, I mean, it was incredible. But that guy taught me a lot about shipping and how to break the boxes down, and like anything that he shipped, you could drop it off of a 100-story building and it wouldn't break. I mean, that's how good he was. And also how quickly, so back then and I still use this on my shipping station, but I have a table, and then on the side, I have my roll on a hook underneath the table. So the sheet is constantly on the table. So when I grab my item, all I got to do is roll it, and it's off. I don't have to pull the sheet. I already know how much it's going to be. It's already hooked to the table, and I can just rip it off and go. And so that's how I still do that to this day. That's another technique that I picked up. But yeah, you're right, man. You gotta, learning, it's hard to, nowadays it's at your fingertips. Everybody's doing a video on the top 10 this and top 10 that, but honestly, there's still plenty to learn, and there's still plenty out there that probably we don't know about.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this story. Sorry, was there any more questions before I hop into this one?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, a lot of people complain about not having, well, we don't have as many yard sales as you, or we don't have as many thrift stores, or there's just not as much product. Well, if I don't have anything to source, I'll make my own way to source. For example, so there's a neighborhood that's close to my house, probably has 400 houses in it, and they're good for every weekend for having like 1 or 2 yard sales ever so often, or at least every weekend, but they've never had a neighborhood yard sale. And so I've planned events for people before, so I just took it upon myself to plan a neighborhood yard sale for that 400 yard neighborhood. So I made flyers. I put the neighborhood letterhead on the flyer. I gave them a time. I set the time for a few weeks out so they'd have time to get everything ready. And I went and I hand delivered them, because I used to deliver newspapers years ago. So all I did is get up at 4:00 in the morning, and I went and taped that flyer on every single mailbox that was in that neighborhood, and just waited, had faith to see if they would have it. So sure enough, the time of the time that I had set that day had came. I got up, and I specifically put on there, please start by 7:30, because most of the time in my area it's 8 a.m. So I wanted to be ahead of everybody, just in case. And this was a little mean. I didn't advertise it either. So, but I mean, every reseller that resells around my area checks that neighborhood anyway. I just didn't advertise it, just so I could have a little bit of advantage. But just about over 60% of those houses in that neighborhood had a yard sale, and that was the first neighborhood yard sale they'd ever had. And they still have it to this day. It's annual. And
I made your own neighborhood yard sale.
Yeah,
basically.
It's not illegal. I mean, I just helped him plan it. That's all.
Just
I did.
takes them along.
Yeah, he was an organizer, you know.
Kevin, I used to do that. We didn't have the flea market wouldn't be in only a certain time of year. So what I would do is I'd find out that there's a neighborhood having a sale, and I'd give them $25 to set up on a corner of their lawn. So I'd sell my stuff at their yard sale, because I didn't have a spot.
Right.
So I would go and I'd set up and say, hey, you guys having a sale this weekend? Oh, yeah. And I'd ask a couple people. Some would say no. And I said, listen, I'll give you $25 if I can set up right there on your lawn.
Yeah. you got to think outside the box, man. You can't just sit back and say, oh, I can't find anything. You got to find it for yourself. And I will say that I've done it to other neighborhoods since. But that first one that I did, I bet you I filled up my car 4 times before anyone showed up for that neighborhood yard sale. So
those guys were like, man, I wonder where the people are at. Like, did somebody advertise? Oh, man, it's just great. You know, for us, that's definitely like a reseller hack extra. So, hey guys, if you can't find a sale, just create your own. That's a great tip. Hey, we are going to jump into these questions because we got a few this week, so we want to take time to do that. All right, so a couple questions. The first comes from Ots Antiques. Says, as a female reseller doing this full time, how do y'all navigate business and life with your wives or significant others who aren't resellers? Part 2, do they wish after hours you would turn off the reselling talk? And then lastly, part 3, keep business inventory out of the home. Know when to turn off the hunting for treasures.
Wow.
And it sounds like Molly's trying to get us in trouble is what she's
Yes.
like for us, how do you guys handle that when it comes to the spouses? I know how Cernoch handles it. We'll ask the newlywed. We'll come on newlywed. Right?
Yeah, listen,
Josie, turn it off if you're listening.
Yeah, it's just about being balanced. You know, obviously, right now I don't have anything here at the new house except for the card setup. You know, we're getting close to the backyard project, and I'm super excited about that. So I don't really have to. There is some stuff downstairs. I do have some hats on the back patio in tubs that I need to take care of. I've been notified because they're getting ready to start working in the back. But yeah, it's just about being a balance. You know, like I'm very lucky that Josie is as supportive as she is. Obviously, I'm super fortunate. I count my blessings every single day. She believes in what I'm doing and what I'm trying to build. And I'm lucky in that sense and very grateful for that. But yeah, you know, like she understands that right now it's a grind because I'm trying to build things up. But I have in my subconscious, obviously, I try to be aware of, you know, okay, you got to try to do things in a certain schedule so that I allow myself time to go on some trips. I allow myself some time to go to, you know, visit her family and stuff like that. So sometimes it's impossible to balance it all, but I do my best to keep that. And in fact, that I have the luxury of having a wife that supports what I do, so it's important for me to be able to support her and, you know, the things that she wants to do at the same time. And then what was it, the last part of that question? It was something about
shut off the reseller talk and the constant treasure hunt.
Oh yeah, well I'll tell you what, I wish I could bring Josie with me. I haven't been doing a lot of picking, obviously, but you know when we get closer to it, because she enjoys it. She's good at it too. You know, there's been some things that she finds. I mean, you guys have seen Josie out in the wild, and you've seen what she's been able to do. So she's really good at it too. And then sometimes, obviously, she just wants to keep some things for herself and for the house. So it's a win-win in that situation. But no, it's just about doing your best to balance everything. And I think the most important thing is to understand that, you know, to have a significant other that supports what you do and your goals and your dreams is to be able to bounce that back and, you know, allow some flexibility and time for them. Because I come from Cernoch knows I come from the restaurant. It was my last, you know, industry I worked in, and it sucked because you work all night and then you know, Josie works all day, and it's like, you know, you come home and it's like she's asleep and you want to sleep during the day and she's at work. So I'm fortunate, and I think it's important to remember that.
Kevin, what's your thoughts on
it? Well, my wife, she thinks I'm a junk dealer. She hates it. so when I first got back into it in 2016, our house was full of crap. I mean, I had stuff everywhere. And honestly, that's what made me get this place. This place here was, I'm like 1 minute from my house, and it was only $400 for 600 square feet. And so that's what made me move into here. This has helped a lot. I've had this place for 4 or 5 years now. I actually have a second unit next door that's the same size. That's full also. So I would have never been able to run this out of my house because it would have taken, well, you see. And so for the most part, my wife is flexible. She lets me do what I do. She's went yard selling a time or two with me, but after an hour she's done, and I'm going all day. I'm going till there isn't anymore. And so that, I usually have to, I'll enjoy the hour that she's with me. I'll take her back home and then I'll go back out and yard sell some more. So, but it's and I never turn off the reseller. I never do. Especially now that I do YouTube also. If I'm not checking eBay, I'm checking YouTube. And so, because editing videos and putting all that work in, I have all this footage. You do all this work to get it edited. You put it out there, and if it flops, it's like, man, I did all that work, and now nothing is happening. So I'm constantly checking that. It usually there has to be something good on that her and I are watching that gets my mind off of it, to really not check anything at all. But
there you go. That's Cernoch.
So, all right. So, like Tim said, I come from a restaurant background, So I got divorced, but not because of reselling. More, I blame it on the restaurant. Okay, working like 70 hours a week, not seeing the kids, not seeing your wife. That has an impact. I will say though, my ex-wife is very supportive because we do a lot of co-parenting. I see her, a lot during the week, so it's not one of those like where, hey, we're divorced. I'm gonna hit the road. We got kids, so but she's very supportive of that. And she when we were together and and I started doing the reselling, she was always supportive of that. So now with it bringing the stuff home, I will tell you that as a single dad, I do have more stuff laying around, maybe the living room and the dining room, and the garage, because I have all the stuff in the basement. But sometimes it's easier just to, all right, let me put this on the dining room table. Let me put this on the dining room table. Let me put this on, and just they're stacking up. So yes, could I be better and moving it all downstairs? Yes, and that is the plan for this spring break. Getting the garage cleaned up, getting the house cleaned up, and moving everything to the bottom, and doing a garage sale. So yeah, we'll see.
Leroy.
Oh, you guys don't want my answers. You don't want my answer. I don't ask. I don't ask if there is no shut off. I have no shut off at all. And the only good thing that I have is that I do have a separation from my house to um, my warehouse. So I have a couple of things maybe that I'll have at the house, not really, just if something researching. But I have the warehouse plus I have a storage area, and that is a blessing, I guess, because I do feel like when I go home, there sort of is a shut off, but I never go home. So that's. I mean, I'm here probably.
Well, you shot shut off, all right.
He's
You gotta
here.
shut off his wife like, nah, we ain't having it. Yeah. Hey, I will tell you because I've been full migration. I've had I started eBay in my house in one little bedroom. That's where I was at to begin with, which became two bedrooms, which became that time that I bought the sporting goods store, and like if you watch that video, it's literally my dining room and my living room full to the hilt. So that took a little negotiating, I'll just tell you. But then I bought a shed, and we moved everything to the shed for the most part, and now I'm kind of in between both, and I have filled my living room partial right now because honestly we're prepping for I do a semi-annual yard sale that I try to blow through inventory that either is set around too long, or it's just when you buy in bulk, you know, a lot of times you get stuff that ain't really worth your time to mess with on eBay. So that's what I'm doing, is trying to recycle a little bit and get it down to just this room that you guys see and the shed, and then clear everything else to where it's not a problem. But sometimes I bring stuff from the car to the house to be listed, but you know, there might be a delay in that process. So that happens. That happens. I will tell you this: I've had probably the most patient wife of anybody, because she occasionally she's like, "It's got to go." Like that's what she'll say: "Is it's got to go." But she does source for me, but it's usually selfishly motivated. It's stuff that she's looking for herself. But in a state sale, she crushes it. Like we'll get home and she'll have stuff in a bag that I'm like, when did we get this? I didn't even know we had this. But that's it's pretty good. It's pretty good overall. All in all, as far as shutting it off, that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. I once you get reseller brain, like you're literally constantly comping. Like that's what I'm doing all the time. Like I'm literally any store that we go in, I'm like looking at the clearance section, or I'm looking at, hey, I heard a boa about this, you know, or whatever. Or if you're driving, like I've been on trips with other people where I'm driving and see like mom and pop thrift shop that I'm like, I want to turn. Like it's one of these things. I've took some of my friends to places that they're like, what are we doing here? But that's just me. Let's see. You got another. Okay, here's a good one. Ascat Sue Janowski asked, thought I missed you guys. That's because I didn't drop that last week's episode till Monday. Understand life happens. Not sure if you've covered this or not, but listing via phone or computer, pros and cons of either. Kevin, what do you do? Phone, computer, both?
Well, now that I'm by myself, I'm back to the phone mainly. But when I had a photographer, I was doing it all by computer. She would drop the pictures on a hard drive. We had a way to where I delineated between each set of photos. Like she would just take a picture of her hand in between, like here's this item, and then the next item would start with another picture of hand. Because it's hard when you have thousands of pictures that you have to scroll through. Sometimes you don't know where one starts and one ends, and so when I was doing that, I would already have the when I would get her stuff to photograph, I would already have the drafts made. So by the time she would work 3 days a week for me, about 4 hours a night. But man, she would knock out 300 or 400 pictures in one night because she didn't have the problem of looking at it and seeing how much it was worth. She was just grabbing it, cleaning it, taking a picture, whatever it was. Especially with shoes, like I have probably about 120 pairs of shoes that I haven't gotten to yet, just because I hate cleaning shoes, and so everything is by phone right now. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and get 15 or 20 drafts ready of the stuff that I'm going to photograph, and then I'll pop out those. I'll take all the pictures, and then I'll just go in and sit and do each one at a time, and that seems to work fairly well for me.
I guess. Cernoch?
I do a hybrid method as well. I usually like to take I like taking the photos on my phone, editing them, doing everything on my phone, and then I have them they automatically drop to my iPhoto or whatever program on my computer, and then I'll take them from there. and I'll do the listings. I'll do the listings on my computer because I've tried it with the phone, and I understand how people will do it on the phone. I always just come back to let me get it on a computer and let me bang this out, because with the keyboard and mouse, I'm faster than typing with my thumbs. So and I have a lot of templates set up on my computer. I have like a little template thing where no matter if it's like Poshmark or Grail or eBay, certain tags or certain things, I can hit 3 buttons and boom, I have a whole paragraph of stuff. So or I can just hit a few buttons and boom, here's my hat template, here's my shoe template, here's my vintage shirt template. So I don't have to like go back and go, okay, let me just. And I know you can in eBay you can have templates, but sometimes I just find it easier where I can go, select, sell similar, and then bam, put in my template. Yeah, but again, I don't hesitate to list on my phone. Like if I'm in the car at baseball practice, all right, yeah, I can do a couple listings there. But if I'm going for a whole like, all right, we're doing a whole stretch of listing, I'm on my computer.
Tim.
Everything on my computer. I can't do any of that stuff on my phone. I feel like an old man, but the computer the phone takes way too long, and then the layout of certain things is not the same. And then if I'm cross listing like I do, like it's just everything is on my computer. It's computer 100%, unless it's obvious. Even on Whatnot, I do on my computer now too, which is like the hugest upgrade that they made. Out of all the millions of upgrades they've made, that was a game changer. It's just a lot faster for me on the computer than it is on the phone.
Leroy?
I do all my listings in the van. I mean, where else should I do all my listings? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, you can't do anything better than that. I take my pictures on an iPhone. And Cernoch knows why I don't take pictures on my regular phone, because they look like trash. And then I just plug into my iMac and I do all the rest of my listings in my iMac.
He's getting attacked. A wasp. Get your EpiPen.
Yeah, so that's it, guys. I'm going this way.
Oh, man. Hey, that's why he does his on the computer. Bugs come after him if he's anywhere but otherwise. For me, honestly, and I guess it's just what I'm comfortable in how I started, but I'm all for it. I've literally done 2 listings on the computer the entire time I've ever sold on eBay. But like, that's one of the things that we talk about all the time. That's why there's a lot of different ways to do things, and do what works best for you. I'm sure if I ever took the time to learn how to do it on the computer, it might be more efficient. But I'm like a one at a time guy, and I do the whole thing at one time, one setting. So that's what I did. Let me see. I know that there was a couple more. There was. Somebody. I know there is one about we would love to see a deep dive every week about hats, both modern and vintage. Every week, deep dive.
You might not do it every week, but I can start incorporating a little bit more. Yeah.
I think there's a call for hat camp. We're just waiting on that camp counselor uniforms to come in.
Yeah.
And we'll do that. I think that may be it. I think there was 2 calls for hats being incorporated, but other than that, I think we're good. So, guys, we are gonna wrap the show, and we are so grateful to have had Kevin with us today, Tennessee Picker, for episode number 25. Guys, we are going to be dropping links down below for his YouTube channel, so make sure you go and check that out. If you really want to go back and see the progression, 5 years ago, he had a video where he got this video game haul. If you want to start from there, but preferably start from the beginning, make sure you leave some comments. Tell him RIN sent you over there. And we do thank all the guys on the panel as always for being here and putting this thing together. 25 episodes, guys. We're on our way. So, Leroy.
Guys, back in another location. That's what we do here. Where in the workshop is Leroy? Where is Leroy filming from today? That's how it works all day. But Kevin, thank you very much. It was very nice. I've learned a lot and got to reminisce a little bit. So I appreciate it and keep up the good work, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me.
We're gonna let you give a little. So long.
Well, it's been an honor to be on here. Honestly, I don't get asked on many shows, so I appreciate the invite and appreciate the hospitality. It's been really fun. And by the way, Cernoch, I was going to. I may need to talk to you. I do have about 800 hats that I haven't listed, and some of them are logo hats, so I don't know if I should try to list them themselves or anyway. Which I should.
You just hit me on Instagram and I'll set you up.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Cernoch.
Hey, great guest. Hey, every time we have a guest on, kudos to the department that gets
The
calls
booking
out
department.
for our guests. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Great job, Kevin. Fantastic. You've got a lot going on. Definitely hit his YouTube channel and everything like that. And yeah, what else is there to say? Another episode 25 in the books. Not yet, but almost in the books. But yeah, so we'll see y'all next time. And hey, yeah, I'll be bringing more hat info too, because listen, spring, summer, hats are hot. I am selling hats every day, so we'll get it cooking.
Make sure you get up that master stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In the
I've got two watchers on the Masters hat.
Masters, yeah, I'm gonna go hunt for all my master stuff tonight and just start listing it.
All right, Tim, take us out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are again at the end of another episode. We got a little bit more of a hype outro song for today. So I feel like the guy in the Beanie Baby video that we watched on Listening and Loafing earlier today. I want to give a big shout out to my guy, Kevin, the tendency picker. It was an awesome episode. We're super excited. You're super excited. Let's resell. Let's do it together. Make sure you guys keep bringing those questions and comments so that we can give you as much knowledge as you need and as we need to be successful resellers and even better people. And don't forget to tell a friend about RIN Reseller Information Network.